Welcome to the big show. I'm pretty much convinced right now they want some kind of civil war. These people are so myopic, they are so selfish, they are so interested in themselves and their own professions and stature that they're willing to throw everything away. As in the United States of America. We're going to talk about the latest out of Judge Merchan from New York and the latest out of Letitia James, also coincidentally from New York. Plus, this is kind of a story. This is something that everyone should be paying attention to right about now, and that would be one Liz Cheney and The View. Peculiar stuff. Did Liz Cheney actually engage in witness tampering, something that she was adamant nobody should do regarding the J6 trial?
Very serious issue, and I would imagine the Department of Justice would be very interested in and would take that very seriously as well.
In fact, Cheney told me that the committee may make a criminal referral to the Justice Department recommending that anybody that attempted to influence witness testimony before the committee be prosecuted for witness tampering.
Really? Well then, it seems one View host, we'll get into who she is, was doing a little coaching on the side and introduced one key witness, Casey Hutchinson, to Liz Cheney. And Liz Cheney and this key witness had conversations. In fact, we have text messages of the conversations in which they said they were going to talk offline and have another conversation. Wouldn't that be, I don't know, witness tampering? The very thing you're not allowed to do, the very thing you want to send people to prison for doing? Liz Cheney, I mean, it's such a double standard, crazy stuff. Anyway, let's get first to the news of the day, immediately to this legal case that just won't go away. I mean that literally, won't go away. The New York judge, Judge Merchan, says Donald Trump is not immune from the hush money conviction case. Remember that one with that Stormy Daniels lady who they paid $130,000 to sort of try to go away about 10 days before Donald Trump was elected the president of the United States. And the reason he did so at the time, he said, was because, first of all, he didn't think he was going to win. Like Nate Silver, by the way, remember him? ABC bought his unit. He's now on his own, and his polling's gotten a lot better. What do you know, since he went out on his own? But Nate Silver had zero chance of Donald Trump winning. And Donald Trump at the time was very concerned about what these allegations would mean for his relationship with his family, specifically one Melania Trump, his wife. And so $130,000 was paid to effectively make this whole story go away. And this then turned into a gigantic case against the former president, now president-elect. So the thinking is, really, amongst legal scholars, and I don't purport to be one, but I have some common sense, which seems to be rather lacking in these various fields these days. But when it comes to Trump anyway, you can't really go after him for this personal matter, which is completely legal. I mean, maybe it's distasteful, but it's completely legal. So he wanted this story to go away. She was paid off $130,000. And they're trying to say, well, it was campaign funds. Well, even if it was campaign funds, let's go there for a moment. Let's just humor them and say, okay, it was campaign funds. That would actually be a federal case. And in this particular situation, Alvin Bragg doesn't have the authority to bring the federal case. That would have been one Jack Smith, but Jack Smith declined to bring that case because he said he didn't have a case. By the way, Jack Smith's two other cases, he'd take a case wherever he could get one. They've gone bye-bye. They've gone away along with Jack Smith. But this thing is hanging on for dear life. And what's really troubling is not just the fact that Judge Merchan is not willing to let it exit stage left, but when you think about what went down in the trial itself and the way he presented the jury a smorgasbord, pick A, B, C, or D, it was a multiple choice operation. It doesn't matter what Donald Trump might be guilty of. It only matters that you find him guilty. Think about that. Think about how crazy that is. And I don't have to tell you how crazy it is. Let's go to an actual legal scholar, Jonathan Turley, who at the time, this would have been March 31st, 2024, was like, this is terrible. I mean, this is terrible for New York. What does this say about our legal system? Here he is.
What happened in that courtroom became superfluous because of those instructions. Some of us were hoping for a hung jury because we hoped that the jury might redeem the New York legal system, which is one of the greatest legal systems in the world. And as these last few weeks have left many of us shocked as to what we saw in that courtroom. But that was not going to happen after the instructions were finalized. And I wrote a column after I saw the instructions saying it had the feel of a canned hunt, where you can shoot game in a small space. The space was very small for the defense to maneuver, and even smaller, it seemed, for the jury to acquit. So I don't blame the jury at all. I think that what they heard in that room probably made it seem to many of them that this was a lead pipe cinch of a conviction. They heard over and over again the prosecutors say that there were election violations committed by Donald Trump, that he ordered Cohen to commit the violations he pled guilty to. That totally smashed the instruction that Mershon had given. And Mershon just sat there. There was no response. So what do you think the jury is going to rule? And then when you tell them, just pick a crime among the three, you don't have to agree. Just pick one of these crimes. If you think that secondary crime was behind all of this, you're good to go. But to this day, most of us don't know what the jury decided, because we know that they unanimously voted to convict. We don't know what they convicted him of. They could have disagreed 4-4-4 on what occurred in this case. That's one of the first things that I think a court will look at for reversal.
Yeah, without a doubt. A huge constitutional issue. I would argue a Sixth Amendment one.
It's unbelievable. It's really, I just got to tell you, it's atrocious in every way. And we haven't even gotten into the bias that Mershon may have had given his daughter's position as a Democrat fundraiser. And she was literally fundraising, getting a percentage of the proceeds. Every time a new development would happen in this legal case that her dad was presiding over, she'd get a percentage of the proceeds. So wouldn't it make sense for Mershon to recuse himself, just given the familial ties? Like, you'd think so. But he's got such a big ego, he wants to sit over this thing and preside over this thing. And now we're in a situation where he's like, no, I have absolute authority. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says. To which I'm like, it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says. Gosh, you guys are really trying to set up a scenario where it is state versus federal. It is state versus the Supreme Court, which I hate to break it to you, but it is the law of the land. Okay? The law of the land. So you can sit there all you want and say, oh, I'm not afraid, just like Letitia James does, but you should be afraid.
I will not fear Donald Trump. I have steel in my backbone. And the reality is I will not allow this person, Donald Trump, who unfortunately is a broken man, to get in the way of progress and to separate us.
No. So she won't drop her case either. So you get Mershon saying, the Supreme Court doesn't have any sway here. You've got Letitia James saying, I'm going for it because it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court decides. I would say this, Mershon still has an opportunity to just dismiss this altogether, but he's not doing that. Ask yourself why. One, because yes, he wants the Civil War, New York versus the rest of the country, and he also wants power, and New York wants power. These are power-hungry people that want to basically hold this thing over Donald Trump and the Republicans' head for the next 4 years. Oh, we don't like the way you do this, that, and the other. Guess what? We're going to take those charges back, and we're going to send you straight to jail. I mean, he wouldn't eventually go to jail only because there is no case there. And you heard Turley say, this thing should be thrown out because in part the jury's instructions that they were given, which were so absolutely ludicrous. But it speaks volumes about where these people are trying to take our country. And you got to think long and hard about that. They are selfish individuals that hate Trump so much, that are so scared about what is about to happen vis-a-vis the slimming down of the massively bureaucratic government, vis-a-vis an actual enforcement of our border, vis-a-vis going after the quote-unquote deep state that tried to frame Donald Trump over and over and over again, which means, by the way, going after you, Mershon, going after you, Letitia James, because you tried to bankrupt him. That was your mission. That is what you campaigned upon, lady. And then when you made sure that the judge had a nearly $500 million fine against him, you said, well, we'll just take his properties, right? Unbelievable.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
And what's crazy is that she's still doing this. She had an opportunity. The Trump team went to her and said, hey, would you throw this out? Would you rescind your case? She said, no, I have every right to bring this. Well, the Court of Appeals is going to toss it out because the Court of Appeals knows better. I've played you guys. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen. I think last week we played a big chunk of that trial in Friday's show because it's like, wow. They see it. They know she has no case. She thinks she can interfere between the valuation that Deutsche Bank and an individual happens to be given various properties. She thinks she knows how much Mar-a-Lago is worth. It's $19 million at best, according to Letitia James. Of course, Joy Behar thinks her nice little, cute little, that little Victorian 4,000 square footer in Sag Harbor, that's apparently worth $10.5 million according to Joy. But you know what? It's worth whatever anybody's going to pay for it. That's the reality. That's why you can't have a Letitia James interfering saying, well, I think it's worth this or I think it's worth that. It's worth whatever anybody is going to pay. It is worth whatever the bank that's actually lending the money thinks it's worth because they're the ones that are on the hook, not you, Letitia. Okay, so you need to stay the H-E-double-L out of there. Or else you're going to find your your tush in the slammer faster than you think. Benny Davis' show.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights, and I promise you that.
So I just had to play that because I'm not going to say that. So I'm going to let Mike Davis say it. My sentiments, exactly. You're going to find your fat, so fast in the slammer, honey, because you're just so, but here's the real question that I keep getting back to, and I want answers to, because how much of this was actually also being orchestrated by the likes of the Biden administration? Now that Biden isn't there anymore, that's why New York, you see, is clinging on. That's why Letitia won't let her case go. That is why Mershon is not going to let it go, because they want some kind of leverage. Hey, we're going to throw you in jail if you don't do, or we're going to fine you $500 million. Unbelievable. Here's Garland being asked by one Matt Gaetz, do you have any transcripts? Is there any information that might suggest you were colluding with Letitia, Alvin, or one Fannie Willis down in Georgia? Actually, I don't have that for you, but he's been all over this. And he asked Garland, and Garland's looking at him like he's some kind of conspiracy theorist, because you're apparently a conspiracy theorist, if you believe any of this. I can think of a lot of stories now at this point in which you were deemed a conspiracy theorist if you dared to think any of this. But this woman actually thinks that she has a case. And that's frightening.
At the end of the day, the documentary evidence demonstrated that, in fact, he falsely inflated his assets to basically enrich himself and his family. He continued to persistently engage in fraud. The numbers don't lie.
And you know what's crazy about that? Is that you have judges that are so biased and so awful. In that particular case, a judge, Arthur Erdogan, that they're slapping a $500 million fine on this thing. The Court of Appeals, they got to get their tails moving fast, because this is actually putting the president in a very challenging position. He's got to watch his every move now because Letitia's like lurking in the corner, about to hit him with a $500 million. This is nuts for a case that honestly needs to get thrown out as of yesterday. Literally makes no sense. She's talking about the numbers that don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Okay, the numbers, actually, if you look at them, show that Mar-a-Lago had revenue of some $57 million a year. So I don't know why you're willing to sell the thing for $18-19, honey. I realize that legal education didn't have a lot of math in it. Letitia, wise up. She's a dumb woman doing dumb stuff. Alvin Bragg, another dummy, doing dumb stuff. Fanny, Fanny we know is a dummy. Tasting men alone, clearly. Not a lot going upstairs in Fannie Willis's case. And in Fannie Willis's case, we're now finding that, yes, absolutely, the boyfriend, the BF, was traveling up on taxpayers' dime, up to the White House to sit down and discuss this case against our now president-elect. So this stuff has to stop, unless this is where will they want a civil war? That's what this is about. I'll tell you, New York, you know what? Go get Trudeau. I hear he's looking for a job. Canada's about to get rid of Trudeau. Wait till you see that. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. But you know what? You've talked to one of your state senators who's talking about splitting off you and Connecticut and a few other ultra-liberal states that want to. You go get Trudeau, okay? Go join Canada, if he can even make it that long, because even Canada's sick of the libs. And form your own little thing, because I'll tell you, everything's being rerouted to Florida and Texas, in place where they actually welcome businesses. The Texas Stock Exchange, that's a new one that just came about. And hey, you think about Bitcoin and the changes that could be coming in the financial system. Do we really need the New York Stock Exchange anymore? And Letitia James and her crazy lawsuits, and Judge Merchan and Judge Erdogan and Alvin Bragg and the rest of them? Short answer, no. But they're the ones doing this. They're the ones setting the stage for a conflict. A conflict that, you know what, America doesn't deserve and America doesn't need. We voted for Donald Trump for a reason. Anyway, I got to get to this unbelievable story about Liz Cheney, which somehow involves The View. You can't make it up, about witness tampering. But before I do, we talk about all this craziness going on. Now might be a time for you to take a look at your portfolio. And when you do, take a look at gold. Up to $15,000 worth of free silver with qualifying offers from American Heart for Gold. You can go to trishlovesgold.com. Kind of has a nice ring to it, right? trishlovesgold.com. You can text Trish to, take a look at that number on the screen, 65532. Text Trish to 65532 or call them at 1-844-495-1115. Up to $15,000 in free silver. And you know, silver tends to move alongside gold and often has, more or less the same kind of upside. I mean, they don't move perfectly together, but still, it's worth having silver if you like gold. And a lot of people consider silver a better bargain at this level right now. But take a look at it. TrishLovesGold.com. Just text my name, TRISH, to 65532. New questions today about the role Liz Cheney may or may not have played in January 6th and the testimony that we saw from one key witness. Liz Cheney, per new publications and new information coming to us from the House of Representatives, is being accused of witness tampering. So she was running the J6 committee. There was a woman named Casey Hutchinson. You see her there in the picture. If you're watching this show live on YouTube, we thank you. Remember, make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Hit the bell so you know when I'm here. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we appreciate that as well. But Casey Hutchinson, who worked for Mark Meadows, she had given a bunch of testimonies, 3 of them actually, and then she changed her mind. And apparently, Alyssa Farah from The View had a hand in that, you know.
Very loudly. I do want to give kudos to ABC's Rachel Scott, who's just amazing, and Katia Goba did an excellent job holding his feet to the fire. And there is something about when women challenge him that he unravels. And what I was struck by wasn't just the blatant racism, the lack of understanding of what it means to be biracial. I've said this for a while. He is slowing down. He's never been a super eloquent person. He did not seem mentally sharp. Walked in.
So she doesn't like Trump. You know who I'm talking about now, this woman on The View. Well, apparently she's good friends with Liz Cheney, and Liz Cheney wanted to get in touch with Casey Hutchinson, and Casey Hutchinson somehow knew Alyssa Farah, and Alyssa's trying to allegedly coach her on the side to get her ready for the J6 testimony. And according to this new report out of, I'll give credit to our friends over at Post Millennium, they reported this first. According to this new report, They believe that Liz Cheney should be investigated by the FBI for possible criminal activity stemming from her work on the House Select Committee on J6. She's, quote, accused of colluding with witness Casey Hutchinson, who testified before the committee and was an aide to Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff, of course, at the time. This goes on to say that based on this evidence obtained by the subcommittee, numerous federal laws were likely broken by Liz Cheney, the former vice chair of the J6 Selection Committee, and these violations should be investigated, they write, by the FBI. Evidence uncovered by the subcommittee revealed that the former Congresswoman Liz Cheney tampered with at least one witness, Casey Hutchinson, by secretly communicating with Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge. This secret communication with a witness is improper and likely violates 18 U.S.C. 1512. Such action is outside the due functioning of the legislative process and therefore not protected by the speech and debate clause. What the heck was she thinking? Unbelievable. All right. And by the way, we get text messages. I'm going to get to those in a second to show you. But anyway, this is the law, right? 18 U.S.C. 1622 that she may be violating as well. It prohibits any person from procuring another person to commit perjury. Based on this evidence obtained by the subcommittee, Hutchinson committed perjury when she lied under oath to the Select Committee. Additionally, Hutchinson was interviewed by the FBI as part of its investigation into President Trump. The subcommittee sought a copy of the FBI Report 302 documenting this interview and Hutchinson's statements, but the FBI has refused to produce this vital document. The FBI, they write, must immediately review the testimony given by Hutchinson in this interview to determine if she also lied in her FBI interview, and if so, the role former Representative Cheney may have played in instigating Hutchinson to radically change her testimony. So she radically changed his testimony. This is so crazy. There was a House report back in October, and it revealed effectively that there were several months prior to the explosive public testimony that Hutchinson gave, and in those prior months, Cheney, quote, communicated with Hutchinson both directly and through an intermediary, the View girl, Alyssa Farah Griffin, who Hutchinson said it was represented by her attorney, Stefan Passatino. The Select Committee conducted 6 transcribed interviews of Hutchinson. In total, Passatino represented Hutchinson for the first 3 interviews. A text message from that report shows that Hutchinson's friend, Alyssa, reached out to Liz and that they agreed to keep the conversation totally confidential. Cheney, through Alyssa, told Hutchinson that she admired her and could do anything that Hutchinson wanted in terms of doing the right thing. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So I've got these text messages. It's wild. So Alyssa Farah was out there talking to Casey Hutchinson. I know you're busy, but is there a chance you've touched base with anyone regarding what we talked about Tuesday night? So I guess this is Casey reaching out to Alyssa. And Alyssa writes back, hey, yes, so I reached out to Liz. That would be one Liz Cheney. She agreed to keep our conversation totally confidential. She said she admires you and could tell that you wanted to do the right thing from your testimony. Her one concern was so long, something about you of counsel. She can't really ethically talk to you without him. Okay, so she knows, right? That would be witness tampering. But what she suggests is a follow-up with you, with your lawyer, that she and Dan George can lead. Probably can do without other members and Tim. Does that help at all? I can tell she really wants to work with you and is just trying to figure out the right way to do it. And Casey Hutchinson writes back, I mean, do you think this is actually of interest to her at this point, or is it moot? Like, have they moved beyond it? Oh, she writes, it's very much of interest. She basically wants to structure in a way that you're comfortable, and she wants to make it clear that if you speak to them again and she's not asking, that you just don't get in trouble. Because you know what? You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna be accused of witness tampering, because that's what it is, right? If you're talking to the witness and she doesn't have her lawyer there and you're not telling anyone, how else do you slice that, guys? Is this witness tampering? Is it witness tampering? Okay, so let's go to the text between Liz Cheney and one Casey Hutchinson. Casey writes, hello, this is Casey Hutchinson. I'm sorry for reaching out in this way, but I was hoping we could have a private conversation. I could have a private conversation with you soon if you are willing. To which Liz writes back, I would be happy to. Let me know what time works for you. She writes, I'm free all day for a call or in person, whichever you prefer. I really, really appreciate this. And then, da-da-da, give me a call when good for you. Liz writes, is now okay. Casey writes, can we aim for 1? That works. I'm sorry I missed you. Please call when you have a moment. I'm worried to initiate the call in case you're tied up with something. So it is believed that the two of them spoke. And this is what the House is demanding answers to, especially given that one, Liz Cheney, was very adamant about how illegal it was to actually talk to witnesses behind the scenes, and that was criminal and it was witness tampering. Remember, we had to get a whole song and dance from her on this. Let's watch.
Allegation she made at the close of this week's hearing that witnesses coming before the committee have been threatened by people close to Trump.
Do you know who was doing it?
I don't want to comment on that. But it's very serious. It really goes to the heart of our legal system. And it's something the committee will certainly be reviewing.
So you think some of the testimony you received wasn't truthful because people were threatened?
The way that I would put it is that it gives us a real insight into how people around the former president are operating, into the extent to which they believe that they can affect the testimony of witnesses before the committee. And it's something we take very seriously. And it's something that people should be aware of. It's a very serious issue, and I would imagine the Department of Justice would be very interested in and would take that very seriously as well.
In fact, Cheney told me that the committee may make a criminal referral to the Justice Department recommending that anybody that attempted to influence witness testimony before the committee be prosecuted for witness tampering. Robin?
All right.
Okay? So she's making a big deal about how nobody can talk to the witnesses. And then what do we see? She's talking to the witnesses. There's a text message of it. Unbelievable. And you know what's really eerie? So, you've got the girl from The View somehow involved in the tangent here, allegedly helping, coaching her, Casey Hutchinson along the way, then putting her in touch with Liz Cheney. And then Liz Cheney goes on The View, and here's how it's all going down with Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, no wonder ABC is freaking out. They just had to pay $15 million. I wonder if they're going to have to pay more.
Do you see yourself, and would you ever consider being the conduit to that third party? Because I don't know if the Republican Party, as we knew it, will survive this. Because if he ever gets in again, we'll never have any more elections. There will be no more. He will stop it. And he's very clear about that. He wants to be dictator for life. Okay? So I wonder, would you ever consider, please, would you, please, consider being that person? Because I got to tell you, I don't understand how people can say, we're with you, we're with you, we're with you, and then when you need them, they go, oh, but we're with him now. Mm-hmm. I don't understand that, and I don't understand how you find the grace not to be pissed at folks. Oh, you're not. Yeah. You're mad at them, but you're not pissed at them, because if you were pissed at them, you would have given up on them, and you haven't. Well, and so, would you?
Look, please, I think that...
I'm begging you. Look, I'm on one knee.
It's all about power. Thanks to our friends over at Newsbusters for that. You see, though, it's all about power. Like, Whoopi's falling all over her. They're all falling all over her, saying, oh, you're going to be the one to run for president. These people are all about collecting power for themselves. And they're so hypocritical in the process. I mean, it's just filled with hypocrisy. On the one hand, she's not allowing witness tampering, and then on the other, seems to be engaging in it. So I think the House is right to ask for this investigation. They need to investigate Liz Cheney. They need to investigate The View host. They need to investigate Casey Hutchinson. We need answers on this, especially as we learn, of course, that, they lied to us. You were a conspiracy theorist if you thought the FBI had any informants in the crowd and in the whole J6 issue. I mean, that was crazy talk, remember, until this.
That there were a total of 26 confidential human sources in the crowd that day.
David Spunt is live from the Justice Department. He has got the news for us. David.
Sandra, 3 of those were authorized and tasked by the FBI to be there on January 6, 2021. We're coming up on 4 years since that day of the Capitol riot. This IG report specifically focuses on the FBI's handling of confidential human sources, or as we know them, FBI informants. For years, the outgoing FBI...
We were lied to a lot. And I think we need to clear the air and find out the truth. And I think electing this president was a big part of this. We need the truth. Did you see the news? American Airlines just got rid of its DEI program, right? Because, in the spirit of the truth, you're not necessarily going to get the best pilots or the best personnel if you're hiring based on X, Y, and Z instead of the qualities that make them good pilots or good personnel. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I started 76 Research. 76research.com originally was to basically find those performing stocks that weren't subscribing to all that nonsense, right? Because you have to be able to cut through and see through the nonsense in order to invest properly. So it was a big part of why I put together 76 Research with a dear friend, Rob Horton. Go over and check it out, 76research.com. You can use code word dollar to get the 76 report, DOLLAR. It's just $1 for the first 2 months. Then it changes to $9.95. There's lots of names in there for you. Lots of good ideas. We help walk you through everything. For goodness sakes, I hope you bought Bitcoin. We were telling you, just with your spare change, if you had a little on the side, right? In September, when it was back at 65,000, it's like 104,000 right now. Wow. Okay. But that aside, and we're not into quick fixes or quick hits. We really believe in building a portfolio that will sustain you for the long haul. So things like the Income Builder portfolio, really, really great things for you to take a look at right now. Go to 76research.com. Have you been following these drones? You know what I'm talking about. All these drones that are apparently up in the sky. Wow, check them out in Connecticut. This girl
literally, there's
got some good video.
Right above us.
This is weird.
And then there's one over there. What the heck? And then there's one right there. What the heck?
Who knows? Look at the aliens.
But there's 1, 2, 3, like in this, like right here.
Crazy.
I'm so confused. Guys, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. They're like all coming together. Wait.
Oh, they're all coming together and they don't really look like planes, right? They look a lot bigger than planes to me. And it's something that she's pointing out. Someone named LL Biggers on Twitter put this out. Unbelievable. And so everybody's like, what is this really? And why isn't anybody giving us any answers? And when they don't give us answers, well, you got congressmen like this coming up with other kinds of answers that are a little alarming.
I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership, probably about...
Did you hear that? He said Iran launched a mothership. And he said they had all these drones right off the East Coast. Now, everybody's saying that's not true. Okay, so that's worth being aware of. That basically DHS, FBI, FAA, all saying it is absolutely not true. And so they're saying, don't worry, we understand you're seeing these things, but basically you're just seeing things, right? They're like, there've been all these drone sightings and there's really no there. It's just, you're kind of seeing things that are just either commercial drones or hobbyist drones or law enforcement drones or manned fixed wing aircraft, helicopters, and even stars mistakenly reported as drones. So nothing to worry about. Well, they can keep saying that, but it doesn't help when you have Bethany Frankel of the Real Housewives of New York fame coming forward saying stuff like this.
You're going to think I'm nuts, but why should today be any different than any other day? I know this guy whose father worked with the Pentagon and NASA and secret projects. And he has been messaging me that he will never forgive himself if he doesn't tell the people that he knows that for a month he's been watching this situation. And now, several days ago, before it became a discussion in the mainstream media, that these drones are ours and that they could very possibly be sniffing out something very dangerous, some missing dangerous W from the war, and that areas that coincide with where the drones have been seen have spiked in radiation. So he said it's time to think about where I am and that I might want to go somewhere with my daughter. So like for me, you know, we blow things off and we think nothing's going to happen, but things do happen. I remember sitting in my car with my driver who said to me months before I even knew what the words global pandemic meant, I think there's going to be a global pandemic. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, if he had bet the markets, he would have been a billionaire. So I'm just listening to this guy and watching. And now Trump, who's hanging out with a lot of billionaires who have a lot of money for research, is also finding out that these are ours. And what were the government's choices? A, tell us that that's what they're doing and widespread panic and pandemonium, or B, do what they're doing. But something is wrong because otherwise they would eliminate them, and everyone's being very cagey. So what do you think? This guy has also been talking to different people in government positions who agree and are watching now.
Okay. Well, we better just start following Bethany on TikTok then so we can get all the updates on the drones. Look, I think this is the problem. When you don't actually come forward and give people real information, you create this information vacuum and it gives rise to all kinds of other theories. And, you know, look, Trump's saying the government knows why they're there. The government is completely aware of everything. All that said, maybe I'm not going to go to Bedminster this weekend. Watch.
You're at home of the drones.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people. And they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster. Want to know the truth? They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Have you received an intelligence briefing on the drones?
I don't want to comment on that.
Have you been?
Do you have any reason to think they're a threat?
Two quick questions.
So that's interesting. He said he didn't want to comment on whether or not he had had an intelligence briefing. Like, I think he's trying to calm people down a little bit there, saying the government knows what they are. But you know what? It would be nice. It would be nice if the government would tell us, right? That would be helpful. Hey, Christmas is coming up. You can do your part to help support the show. Go check out the Trish Regan shop, trishregan.shop today. Trishregan.shop. You can get your Live Free or Die coffee cup, which I drink gallons of water out of every single day. My coffee in the morning, too. Or get one of the patriotic hats, Trish Regan hats. I actually designed some of those myself, so go check them out. Also, don't forget, this one's free, investinmaga.com. Go to investinmaga.com. It is our guide that we just published on how to invest in this MAGA suite, because there's a lot of opportunity there. And we're going into the thick of the holidays, right? The thick of the holidays, which means you have to take care of yourself. I know it's not easy. There's so many temptations around and all this great food, etc. I'm cooking Christmas Eve and Christmas dinner. God help me. I'm looking forward to all of it though. But anyway, go check out balanceofnature.com. It's where I get my vitamins from, my fruits and veggies that I take every single day. Use code word Trish. You get 35% off plus free shipping. You can call them at 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751 today. Again, Balance of Nature. Use code word Trish. You're helping the show. You're helping yourself. One of our favorite sponsors here, because to me, you know what? You take care of yourself personally in terms of your own health as much as you can, and you take it, it's like health and wealth, right? And you take care of your finances as well. It's part of being independent and strong. So news today that they're trying to figure out this continuing resolution. Of course, everybody's trying to slide their own little bit of pork in. Marjorie Greene pointing this out, just how disgusting this process is right now on Capitol Hill. Listen.
Well, it's really turning into, it's not a CR, which is a continuation of the budget. It's turning into an omnibus, is what it sounds like to me, where they're packing in, everybody's packing in what they want here and there, and using the pressure and the situation of the government shutdown. Of course, tragically, farmers are being dangled. Americans that suffered through natural disasters, they're being dangled with disaster relief. And I think that's incredibly unfair. And think about it like this: if this is going to turn into a 3-month omnibus, basically, then why aren't we doing the heavy lifting on, the upcoming debt ceiling situations that we have to deal with in March, government funding? But no, and we don't have any bill text. I have no idea what's in the CR except just basic things that we were told in there.
Unbelievable, right? Well, part of this is because everybody's terrified of Doge and what Doge is going to mean when they come in and they take a red pen to everything that's going on. But Marjorie Greene making the point that nobody even knows what's in there. Well, there's one little thing that just came out just a short time ago. I just talked to Senator Toomey about it, former senator from Pennsylvania. They're trying to slide all kinds of things in here, specifically the pharmaceutical industry. Oh, we just love them, right? Let's take a listen to what Pat Toomey has to say. Joining me right now with more on all of this crazy last-minute stuff that they're trying to sneak in there, I have Senator Pat Toomey, who represented the great state of Pennsylvania for some time. Good to see you, Senator.
Hey, Tricia, thanks for having me.
So I'm sort of like, wow. I mean, this is like a last-minute thing, right? Continuing resolution. They're trying to stuff as much as they can. And one of the things that caught my eye is what they're trying to do vis-a-vis health insurance. And this is a little complicated. I'm going to warn everybody in advance, but suffice it to say, it's once again big government kind of trying to take over your health care for the profitability of certain people, and frankly, in my estimation, the lack of care for everyone else. But I'll let you walk us through it. So we've got a continuing resolution, and somebody snuck something here as it relates to insurance and the cost of that we pay for drugs.
Yeah, if we could step back for just one second, Tricia, for context, the continuing resolution is the bill to fund the government. If it doesn't pass, then there would be some partial government shutdown for some period of time. And really what Republicans should be doing here is trying their best to have what we used to call a clean CR, clean in the sense that all you do is continue the current level of funding across the board until some defined date in the relatively near future, and you avoid loading it up like a Christmas tree with all kinds of ornaments. Unfortunately, it looks like this is getting a lot of ornaments, and some of them are huge and extremely expensive. This bill has only been out since about noontime today, Tuesday, and it appears that there's something on the order of 800 pages, all on remaking the healthcare market. Now, what does that have to do with keeping the government open for a few more months until Republicans have complete control of the government? But apparently it's in there, and it's going to have the government mandating how private businesses can relate to each other, specifically the role that pharmaceutical benefit managers, PBMs, can play in negotiating savings from big pharma, from whom they negotiate the purchase of medicines for employers who pay for health insurance for their workers. So
okay, so just to back up, a
a-
company hires a PBM, and the PBM
Correct.
goes out there, and they're supposed to get the best prices for the company, and that's why the company's hired them. They're acting like as an agent, and they're supposed to
that's
be
it.
getting the best possible prices for the company.
That's exactly right. And it's also important to keep in mind that most of the clients of the PBMs are small and medium-sized businesses that individually would have no leverage whatsoever against a giant multinational pharmaceutical company. And so that's one of the reasons they hire PBMs. PBMs have many such clients, and the aggregate purchasing power of all of their clients together gives the PBMs the leverage to negotiate discounts, which often come in the form of rebates based on volume, and that gets passed on to employers. And here's a really important thing to remember. No employer is forced to hire a PBM, but they usually do because they realize it's a way to get a more affordable, less expensive, and more flexible plan for their employees. And this is going to get massively disruptive if it passes in the form that it appears to be in this bill.
And walk us through why. Suddenly, they're getting incentives from the federal government as opposed to companies themselves?
No, I think what's happening here, and again, the text has only been out for 30 minutes, so I haven't had a chance to go through it all.
We appreciate it. This is what you call being on the news curve. Here on the Trish Regan Show, we're on the news.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is there's slightly different mechanisms that the bill contemplates, whether it is a purely private plan between an employer and a insurance company and pharmaceuticals versus Medicare, which is a government-sponsored plan. And the government, in both cases, this bill is meant to have the government mandate the terms and the circumstance and the nature of the compensation that the PBMs can receive for having secured the savings they've gotten. In the purely private market, there's absolutely no reason for the government to come in and mandate this. In the Medicare market, it's just a bad idea because this has been explored before and it's going to cost more money for Medicare beneficiaries or taxpayers or both. So
who's making out here? The pharmaceutical companies?
The pharmaceutical companies want this provision very badly. I think it's safe to assume that they want it because it's good for them. And they have been the primary advocates for this policy.
I mean, again, I just get back to it seems like this is a relationship between the company who's trying to protect and get the best prices for its workers and the PBM to suddenly have Uncle Sam coming in from top down and saying, no, we want to get this price and that price, and the pharmaceutical companies being the organization that stand to benefit there. This makes me really uncomfortable, really nervous. And by the way, this isn't going to pass the smell test, I don't think, with DOGE or anything else, but I wonder if they're trying to force it in at the 11th hour because, they don't have as big a majority there yet, and they don't have DOGE there yet, and they don't have President Trump there yet. What's your reaction to the timing, shall we say?
Well, I think you're onto something there. There are a lot of Democrats for whom this kind of policy has been a big priority for a long time, and they realize that their leverage is going to be much reduced when a Republican Senate is sworn in and the Republican president replaces a Democrat president. So yeah, I think that's part of the impetus to get it done now.
So how do we stop it? Are you talking to other Republican lawmakers? I mean, you're here on my show. I appreciate it, but what does one do to kind of just stop this dead in its tracks so it doesn't get too far down?
I'm still within 2 years of having left the Senate, so there's a prohibition against my speaking directly to my former colleagues about what I think is good and bad policy. So I can come on your show and tell the world what I think, but I can't do that specifically with individual members of Congress.
So I think we need to, we'll tweet this out. We'll get this out. I know that there's a site that people can go to, Pharma Windfall, I guess, because that's what it would be, .com. So, go to Pharma Windfall. I would say maybe reach out to your local law enforcement, right? So that people are aware of it.
Lawmakers, legislators.
Forgive me, yes.
Right.
Long day already.
But I understand. Yeah, I think reach out to members of Congress and say, what in the world are you doing? Ask them if they can explain what's in this 800 pages. I think that'd be pretty challenging for almost anybody,
Well, who's going to read it? Let's be honest. You're going straight into the holidays.
Yeah, right. You couldn't read this if you spent the next 48 hours continuously trying to read it and understand it, and yet there's going to be a vote on it. That's part of what's wrong with this process.
Okay, well, I'm so glad that you're here today. I'm so glad we're calling attention to it. Do call your local lawmaker. Do go to farmawindfall.com, and we'll get the word out. One person at a time. That's how we've been building this channel and building this show. So one person at a time. We don't want more big pharma, at least in my view, taking control of our lives.
And big government dictating the terms of our health insurance and health coverage.
Senator Toomey, it is good to see you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas
Have a happy
to you.
New Year. We'll have to get an
Good to see
update
you,
on
Trish.
this from you soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Wow. So Senator Toomey trying to call attention to that, and it's a good thing. It's unbelievable. I'm telling you, the Doge thing can't happen soon enough. We really need to focus on paring down this government, getting everybody's pet project out of the way, because otherwise, this is not a good scenario for our future. I'll tell you, Trump means it. He means business. And there's a lot of stuff at play right now. I mean, for one thing, the media itself, the idea that the View host was coordinating behind the scenes with Liz Cheney, and Liz Cheney was somehow reportedly having somebody amend their testimony, which would be witness tampering. I mean, the media's got some blame in this. Most definitely. And we saw, of course, just recently that George Stephanopoulos over at ABC, by the way, which also produces The View, he just got hit with, he and his network, $15 million. I believe it was 16 altogether, because Georgie probably had to pay $1 million to cover the legal fees for Trump's lawyers, and then $15 million is being donated to the library. And Donald Trump is not done. He also has some questions about one Ann Seltzer over at the Des Moines Register. Remember the Des Moines newspaper that came out with that crazy poll just at the 11th hour on the eve of the election that completely reversed what everybody else had been seeing? Well, he has not forgotten about that. Watch.
I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world because I was going to win Iowa by 20 points. The farmers loved me, and I loved the farmers. And it was interesting the way she did it. She brought it down 2 weeks before. She said I was going to only win by 4. That was a big story. But that was good because she brought it down from like 22 points to 4 or whatever the number was, way up. Way up, an easy win. We never even thought to go there. I respect them, I love them, and they understand there's no reason to go there because she brought it from way up, walk away, which it was, and it turned out to be in the election too, by the way. It was a win by many, many points. And then she brought it down very smartly to 4 a couple of weeks before, and everyone said, wow, that's amazing. He's only up by 4 points. Then she brought it down to where it was down by 3 or 4, whatever number she used. And that was the Des Moines Register, and it was their parent. And in my opinion, it was fraud, and it was election interference. She's gotten me right always. She's a very good pollster. She knows what she was doing. And she then quit before. And we'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow. We're filing one on 60 Minutes, you know about that, where they took Kamala's answer, which was a crazy answer, a horrible answer, and they took the whole answer out and they replaced it with something else she said later on.
It's kind of funny. The 60 Minutes one, and I've showed you that one before. It is sort of amazing. They really made her look just terrific. They completely they did surgery on her answer. I mean, you had to do surgery on her answers because the word salad was so prolific. You had to get in there with some precision and try and make the woman make sense. Because otherwise, how are you ever going to present that to the audience? Anyway, he's suing CBS for $10 billion. I don't even think the whole company, Paramount, its parent company, is worth anything close to that. It might be around $8 billion. So he's making a pretty big overture on that front. In terms of the Des Moines newspaper, the only thing I would say on that is, they'd have to, in their diligence and in their discovery process, somehow be able to prove that this was deliberate and that this was malicious, because you got to give people somewhat the benefit of the doubt. The pollster, she had been right a lot before. Of course, that's what made it even more peculiar. It's like, whoa, what's going on? And she at the time explained it with a lot more women, middle-aged women were voting, or older women were voting. And so that had come into her demographic. And I don't think she changed the numbers to really adjust for the reality that those people weren't actually making up the majority of the electorate. She somehow just had this different sort of hodgepodge of people that she was interviewing and incorporated them into her statistics, and it was sort of inherently flawed. Now the question becomes, did she do that deliberately? Was anybody on the take? Was she getting paid to have some kind of different outcome? What were the biases involved? Assuming that she's completely innocent of that and she just sucks at her job and she's just a bad pollster. But by the way, she hadn't been previously. So that was, I think, part of the disturbing thing there. And if there was any pressure from the paper, if the paper was trying to solve for a certain narrative and wanted to be able to say, hey, Donald Trump is going to lose Iowa, well then, yes, he's got a heck of a case. A heck of a case, believe me. And I think when I look at the other situations in the media, they were clearly talking their book over and over and over again. They just despised him. I mean, how many times did we have to sit through, oh, he's basically the next Hitler? Remember that over and over and over again. And this was a constant. I mean, Joe Scarborough, unbelievable.
Okay, now, where can we meet in the middle? La, la, la. On this question, we're past that. You can't meet. If they voted for Trump in 16, whatever. They voted for Trump in 20, they knew exactly what they were doing. If they vote for Donald Trump in 2024, and I've said it on my show, I'll say it here, they're knowingly voting for a fascist. They're voting for a racist. They're voting for somebody that wants to put this country 200 years in the back. And so I'm not trying to figure them out. I'm trying to figure out how we get people out who love democracy, who love freedom, who love the rights of all Americans, how to get them to the voting booth. Because that's how we save our country.
By the way,
I can't yell that loud on TV, but it's nice being able to do it.
Did you see who's with him? The guy who apparently got $500,000 for interviewing Kamala Harris. His organization, Reverend Al Sharpton, reportedly received 2 chunks of $250,000 each per the Washington Examiner. Unbelievable. By the way, that's why the network is for sale, in part. It was got lousy ratings. It's got lousy talent. And they go on and they say all this crazy stuff. I mean, this was the media. And so you have to say, listen, if you guys are purporting to be one thing and then you're saying these wild things, is there not any kind of defamation libel that he can employ? I mean, somebody goes on and says these things about you with absolutely no evidence. They're equating him with the worst ever, most heinous leader in modern history who's responsible for well over 5 million people dying. And that's okay?
Of course, Trump is a Nazi time again.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. I mean, that is Mussolini, Hitler-like language.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity.
Echoing Hitler's words.
Listen to this.
Well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right. Echoing the hateful rhetoric of Adolf Hitler.
It echoes Hitler. That's the kind of language Hitler used in Mein Kampf.
About vermin and Hitler and Mussolini.
That's a horrifying clip. That's a fascist clip.
Oh, God. Okay, so the fascism, I'm all about freedom of speech. And you can have an opinion, and you should have an opinion. But you should back that opinion up with substance. The kinds of things that they said, while purporting to be completely non-biased and to be down the middle and this, that, and the other, that's pretty heinous stuff. Turning to another story, up in Canada, Trudeau is on thin ice. Pun intended. You know, they have a lot of ice up in Canada. Ice hockey, figure skating. It's cold. It's cold. Well, the people are tired, not just of the weather, but of the inflation that they've gotten under Trudeau, plus all the wokeness that you get in spades from one Justin Trudeau. Here's a heckler outside greeting him, some Canadian who's clearly really upset. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so Trudeau is apparently on the verge of losing his gig there. And you get it, right? Like, the people are frustrated. It's a very bad economic situation. Hey, if you think we had it bad, if you think inflation was bad here, remember how proud Joe Biden was of pointing to elsewhere in the world and saying their inflation is even worse everywhere else? Well, let me just say that that's not going over so well with the people of Canada. Steve Moore was on the show yesterday. Remember when he said MAGA's going global? This populist movement, this uprising from people who are demanding that they know more, that they have more say, they want more transparency, and they want leaders that are working for them. Trudeau is not really seen as a guy who's working for the people, shall we say. Reminder, one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show is American Heart for Gold. Go check them out. TrishLovesGold.com. You can't forget it. TrishLovesGold.com. You can get up to $15,000 of free silver with qualifying offers. You can text Trish to 65532 today. Text Trish to 65532 to find out more about how you get that $15,000, or you can call them at 1-844-495-1115. 1-844-495-1115. And of course, the store. It's Christmas, right? Go check out the TrishRegan.shop, TrishRegan.shop today. You can get all of the latest merch. And finally, my gift to you, the new guide, Invest in MAGA, investinmaga.com. This is from 76 Research, financial research company that I partnered with a very dear friend who spent years and years on Wall Street running billions of dollars, brilliant stock picker. That would be one Rob Horton. So go check that out. I will be right back here with you again tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe so you know exactly when I'm here. I'm seeing lots of new faces in the chat room here today. So do make sure you hit subscribe and you hit the bell. You hit the bell. It's critical. We got so much more to talk about. I'll be here for all of it. I hope you are too. See you then.